Our next speaker is Dr. Elizabeth Cyarto. Elizabeth Cyarto is the Deputy Divisional Director of Health Promotion at the National Ageing Research Institute, or NARI. She's an award-winning scholar and she earned her PhD from the University of Queensland. She's been researching and delivering healthy ageing initiatives for North Americans and for Australians for over 2 decades. And she believes that you either use it or you lose it. But what does that mean? To answer that question, she's led the development of Australia's first healthy ageing quiz. And today she's going to be talking about the healthy ageing quiz and how you can use it to plan for ageing well. Please welcome Liz.
Thank you, Gail, for that introduction. Good morning, everyone. Hard to see the crowd from this vantage point, but I'll do my best. Get all my devices handy here. How much further to go, Amanda? Oh, wait. Holding it upside down. Start. I don't want to know pose. Oh, might need some technical expertise. Oh, now I'm going too far. Let me see if this thing works, actually. Experiment a second here. No, it's not. Just have to find it. I don't have enough strength. That's my problem. No, I think we're going to give a pass on that. All right. Okay. Well, thank you again to Emma and to Tim and to the team at the National Senior Director Aging Centre for the opportunity to come and speak to you about Healthy Aging Quiz, and also for generously providing a copy to each of you in your show bag. So if you haven't pulled it out, you might want to, before I begin, pull it out now before there's all kinds of rustling so that you have it handy, because I'm going to be referring to it on a few occasions during my presentation. And the aim of what I'm here to speak to you about is just to give you a bit of a background on how this quiz came about, how it was developed, some of the research behind it, but also focus in on the content of it, highlighting some of the key topics included in the quiz and what it means to you, how you can benefit from the quiz. Now, I may be preaching to the converted here in this audience, and I appreciate that. However, there's probably something everyone can do a little bit differently after they leave today, whether it's physical, health, financial, cognitive. So I'm hoping that you take a little bit out of this presentation as well. I'd also like to acknowledge my colleagues at NARI, and wouldn't be here without them. This quiz has also been published in the Australasian Journal on Aging recently as well, so it's got the evidence behind it. Just a bit of background. We've already heard a bit about population aging, and Michael had that slide up showing that at 2031 we've got about 10.7 million individuals here in Australia over the age of 50 years, and I'm sure I'm from Canada originally. I've been here about 5 years, and I'm sure it's very similar in North America and Canada's scenario. And Michael Valenzuela also highlighted that the economic and the financial costs of potentially linked to population aging. And we're more and more interested now in not just living longer. The average life expectancy here in Australia is about 82 years. We want to have good quality of life, adding not just years onto your lifespan, but being able to enjoy those years. And looking at some of the lifestyle factors in the Health Aging Quiz can assist with that. Now, as well, with the internet and with all the different sources of media available to us, there's all kinds of information out there in the ether about what to do, how to age well, how to be physically healthy, cognitively healthy, but it is all over the place. And that was one of the reasons why we developed this quiz in the first place, is we were being asked to come up and do community talks, and people were saying to us, well, how do I do this, how do I do that? We thought, let's pull everything together into a user-friendly quiz, which could be completed very quickly in about 10 minutes, and give you a snapshot of how you're traveling and how you can maximize your chances of aging well. But also not being like a pop quiz in the women's magazines, not to slight the women's magazines, but wanted to be evidence-based and scientific, so looking at all the literature and the research. So the aim of our project, the Healthy Aging Quiz, which was generously funded by the National Seniors Productive Aging Centre, and we are very grateful for that funding a few years ago now, was to help people become more aware of the lifestyle, the things that can be changed in your day-to-day living that can assist you to age well. So by developing the quiz and some added actions and strategies to help you change those risk factors and take advantage of what you've learned in the quiz and making sure that it does satisfy the evidence base. Just a brief bit of background on how we developed the quiz. So we did take a very detailed look at the literature, focusing in on the lifestyle and the behavioral factors, things that are amenable to change and that you can do something about. As we've heard earlier, that there's nothing you can do about gender, nothing much you can do about age, but certainly things around lifestyle, activity, diet, maintaining healthy body weight, etc. Keeping on top of medications, which you'll hear about shortly, are very important factors. So we looked extensively at the literature, and we found that there wasn't anything out there aiming to do what we were meant to do, which is a good thing. It meant that there's a gap in the literature, a gap in the research, and that allowed us to continue on and say, let's develop this quiz. So during phase 1, we also developed a prototype of the quiz, a very rough and ready version of the quiz. It had probably twice as many questions. It's way too long, but we threw everything into it that we thought would be interesting and valuable to start as our first quiz. And we also, in phase 2, we wanted to know not just what the literature said, but what do people think about healthy aging? What does it mean to older people to age well? What are the factors that are important to them? So it's important to get that input. So we had focus groups here in Melbourne, and also we had a couple of groups on the Bellarine Peninsula to get a metropolitan feel and also more of a rural regional feel into whether there's differences between how people look at healthy aging. So we had a few focus groups, got a lot of very valuable information from the participants, some of which might have been members of National Seniors, so we're grateful there. And we also had an expert panel guiding us in the development of the quiz, so an expert in falls and balance, an expert in physical activity, nutrition, cognitive health, so someone in each of the areas that you'll see in the quiz to help guide us as well with the selection of questions. Then in phase 3, we took our prototype quiz, slightly modified based on the findings from the focus groups and from the expert panel, and we distributed it out to about at least 300 older people. Again, some of you in the room may have filled in our prototype quiz. Anyone see our very early version of the quiz? Don't see any hands up. Oh yes, there's one. Thank you very much. And again, thank you to your colleagues, other members of National Seniors who did help us in the development of this quiz. So we spent a fair bit of time. We sent the quiz out. We also sent out with the quiz other measures of topics in the quiz, other measures of physical activity, quality of life, nutrition, just so that we could corroborate our quiz to make sure what we were asking in the quiz matched up with the different elements of the other questionnaires, and also making sure that our questions were different than some of the other questions. So establishing some relationship between the gold standards of the other established quizzes and questionnaires compared with our quiz. And what we did find that it did corroborate very well, and we also wanted to make sure that the quiz was reliable. So we sent the quiz out again to another 100 or so willing volunteers to fill it out a second time so we could make sure that the score they received in time 1 was very similar to the score they received at time 2 to establish the reliability of the quiz. We did a fair bit of psychometric testing, again, to try to make it as scientific as possible. After all that was said and done, we had our final quiz, which you have in printed form in front of you, and we launched it at an event a couple of years ago with Nolene Brown, the ambassador for aging, which is that was in Canberra a couple of years ago, which was fantastic. So it is out there and widely available, so please spread the word. The final product that you have in front of you has 22 questions, and those are the topics, the key topics that you see there on the screen. A question or 2 in each of those areas. And certainly, most of the questions have a 0, 1, or 2 score, with the exception of physical activity, where you have, I believe, a maximum score of 4 to cover off the different types of exercise. And your maximum score being a big 46. Again, there's no rationale as to why it was 46. It just ended up being, we're looking at the questions and the points. So certainly you have the paper version in your show bags there, and again, I'm grateful for the Productive Aging Center for producing those for us today. There is an online version that you can access through the National Seniors website and also the National Aging Research Institute website for those who are more tech savvy. And I will mention that right now it's looking quite plain on our website. It's not as fancy as the printed version. We're in the process of making it a little bit more user-friendly. You certainly can fill in the questions online and you'll get a score and you'll get tips and recommendations, but it just needs to look a bit sexier. It's looking very plain and boring, so we're in the process of doing that, but please check it out if you're interested. So, do you really want to know about what you need to do to maximize your chances of aging well? Anyone? Anyone? A couple of brave souls want to know what they need to do. All right, well, I'm a physical activity researcher, there's no hiding that. And yes, indeed, we need to do something to keep ourselves moving and active. So on that vein, I think we need, we've been sitting for about a half an hour. There's a lot of research coming out now, and it's very sexy to look at sitting time and trying to reduce the amount of time we spend in a seated position. So let's everybody just stand up, just shake things out. If you feel so inclined, just, march your legs up and down, circle your shoulders. We'll just take a short few seconds here. What about you guys? There we go. Nicely done. Nicely done. Just to loosen up, because of course we're trying to promote physical activity. So when you're feeling that you've had a bit of a stretch, you can have a seat. And these recommendations, the National Aging Research Institute were involved in developing some specific guidelines. They were launched in 2009 to guide older people into what they should be doing to maintain physical activity. So the first one is, of course, there's no excuses for anyone. Everyone in this room can do some sort of physical activity that might need to be modified based on chronic conditions or disabilities or other situations, but you're not off the hook, no matter how old you are. It doesn't matter what your abilities are. Even those who are in wheelchairs still need to have a certain amount of fitness to be able to keep themselves as independent as possible. So that's the number one recommendation. Number two, of course, being active as many ways as possible. How many walkers are in the room? They're walking, fantastic. That seems to be that's the most popular activity for older people is walking. And that will give you the cardiovascular endurance when you do that at a moderate to brisk pace, of course. But of course, you also want to focus on strength training. Because you need to have a certain amount of strength in order to stay able to get out of a chair, for example, get out of the bathtub. So building in strength training activities, whether it's formal things like going to a gym, or whether it's more carrying your groceries, climbing stairs, those kinds of incidental activities are very important. Balance can be things like waiting for the kettle to boil. You practice, you've got the bench in front of you, practice standing on one foot. See if you can do that while the kettle, you're waiting for the kettle. Or simple things that don't have to be structured can also be very beneficial. Also, flexibility. A lot of people take Tai Chi and yoga, and those types of activities are excellent. They don't have to be boring and done by yourself. Being in a group has those benefits as well. So number three is really important, getting that 30 minutes of physical activity on most, if not all, days of the week. Walking, joining a group, swimming, cycling, it's all kinds of opportunities. It's just a matter of, what you're going to do is, the exercise you pick is the one that you're going to do consistently, every day, every day. Eating a healthy, balanced diet. Well, of course, you're familiar with the guidelines to everything in moderation, certainly emphasizing the lean meat, fish, poultry, emphasizing the fruits and vegetables, etc. So that's a very key factor from the literature around staying well and aging well. Healthy body weight. Yes, indeed. I can totally see it. I can totally see it happening. So, yes. Enough said there. Now, BMI, or body mass index, is, and if you open your booklet to page 6, you'll see a table. This is the trickiest part of the whole quiz, was how to get people to understand BMI, or body mass index, and being in the 20 to 25 range. We struggled and struggled and struggled. So here's an opportunity to use your cognitive abilities and do a bit of calculation, get whether or not calculator, no calculator, figure out what your BMI is. Or if you look at that table, it will tell you, if you look for your height and your weight, if your weight is not in the left side of the table, if you're under the age of 65, then you need to do something about getting more active, looking at your diet to get your weight and into that body mass index of 20 to 25. You get a bit of grace if you're over 65. Yes. Okay. If you want to look at waist circumference, look at the back of the tag in your underpants, gents. Look to see that it's 94 centimeters or less for your waist circumference. So again, carrying body fat around the waist, higher risk. Smoking, again, very key factor in healthy aging. And I should mention that a new study has just come out, just published online, looking at 4 key factors. So smoking, physical activity, maintaining a healthy body weight, and following a Mediterranean-style diet, emphasizing the vegetables, fruits, fish. Really important in terms of protecting you from coronary heart disease. I'll just read a quick quote here. That adopting those 4 lifestyle behaviors protected against coronary heart disease and reduce the chance of death from all causes by 80% over an 8-year period. So those 4 things, quit smoking, physical activity, maintain a healthy body weight, eat well, are going to really do well for you over the next coming years. And that's just coming out of the American Journal of Epidemiology, a study based on 6,200 older people. Socially active, we've heard about that already. Michael did a good talk about volunteering and the Experience Corps in the US. So again, that's part of our quiz, questions about being socially active and ways that you can do that, whether it's friends, family, activities that you can join, groups you can join. Mentally active, again, don't need to spend much time here. Michael did such a fantastic job talking to you about cognitive well-being. I love that cognitively lazy terminology. You don't mind if I use that when I'm doing future talks, because I think that's fantastic. And maintaining that active cognitive lifestyle that Michael talked about, including juggling could be your new hobby. So your healthy aging quiz score. Has anyone calculated their score yet? Oh, a few keen ones in the crowd. How are you doing? Are you doing well? Yeah, so far so good. So again, we want to aim for that 31 to 46 point category. That's what you want to aim for. 0 to 15, yeah, you have a lot of work to do. You got to get out there and start making some changes. 16 to 30, you're doing all right, but there's room for improvement. But don't sit on your laurels. If you're in 31 to 46, I'm sorry. If you have less than 2 on any of those questions, less than 4 on the physical activity question, there's some room for you to make even a small change, which will benefit you down the track. So in the quiz, whether it's online or in paper version, you have tips in each of those sections to give you more information about where you can go, websites, other information. You have summary tips at the very end of the quiz, an action planning sheet. So you don't want to tackle everything at once. Start with something small, whether it's eating more fish or bumping up your moderate paced activity to a bit more vigorous, for example. And you also can consult with your doctor in terms of where you should be and get some advice as well and other resources. So GPs are valuable in that regard. And I'll certainly be around as well to help with any questions you might have. Now I believe that draws me to a close with my cognitive brain overloading here. My details are there. I'm certainly going to be around. And I do thank you very much for your attention and interest in this topic.